Wireless in 2026 is kinda insane. Mice weigh under 19 grams, latency is basically the same as wired, so why did I go back? I wanted to test the two best wire mice on the planet. Not look at specs, actually use them, every day in ranked for months. So I use a Zaunkoenig M3K, around $370, the most extreme wired mouse that you can buy, and an endgame gear OP1 8K V2, about $90, German engineering and one of the fastest clicking mice you can buy right now. One of these I genuinely loved, the other one let me down. So let's start with the M3K. Now this mouse has 23 grams. You pick it up and your brain just doesn't get it. It doesn't feel like you're holding your mouse, your fingers move, the cursor follows. There's nothing in between. The shell is real carbon fiber, your hand doesn't sweat on it, and every other mouse I've used, after an hour the coating gets slippery, this one stays dry. But the part that surprised me the most was the cable. It uses this material called ATFE, which is thinner and lighter than a paracord. I put it into a bungee and I genuinely cannot feel it. Zero drag, and it felt like I was playing with a wireless mouse. Shape was also perfect for my fingertip grip, everything just worked. And I legit thought this would be my new main, zero plans to actually change it. But the problem is that it's almost $400. If it breaks, you wait months for a restock. No side buttons, no software, it's a collector piece that happens to feel like the best mouse I've ever touched. So if money generally doesn't matter, try it. To anyone else, I can recommend this with a straight face. But there is a wire mouse that gives you even more than the M3K, and I'm talking about OP1 8K V2, around $90, German build, 8K polling rate that actually works. And the clicks on these things are generally insane. Now normally most mice register your click when you press down and the switch makes contact at the bottom. This one does the opposite. It registers when the contact breaks at the top, so the click fires earlier in the motion, and the result is one of the fastest clicks you can buy. And honestly, until the Super Strike X2 came at like $180, I hadn't felt anything close to this on any other mouse. Shape is also great for clock grip, build quality, premium, no flex, no creaking. You can tell someone actually cared when making this. So right now you're probably thinking this sounds perfect, what's the problem? And the problem is the cable. It's decent, but decent isn't enough when you're coming from wireless. You feel it, and you feel it a lot. And to fix that you need to buy a new cable, get a bungee, set it all up, and at that point just get wireless since the price is gonna be similar anyway. And that's the test for any wire mouse in 2026. It can't just be good. It has to be so much better than wireless that you're okay giving up the convenience. So does wired even make sense? Now I've used the two best wire mice you can buy. And then Logitech dropped the Super Strike X2, which is wireless by the way. And of course the first thing that I did, I wanted to test it against the OP1 8K V2. Results were basically kinda similar. Super Strike even slightly beat it in some tests. So now we have a wireless mouse that just matched the best wire latency on the market. And if we wanna talk weight, there's a mouse called the Fenrir Pro, which is 19 grams. Again, wireless. Same weight class as the $370 carbon fiber M3K. So the two things wired always had, lighter and faster, are basically gone. But there are things wire still does that wireless can't. And depending on who you are, these might matter more than latency or weight ever did. And I'm talking about price, a good wire mouse is $65 to $90. And we're going to compare these to like the top flagship mice when it comes to performance. But again, the price isn't even the thing that made me appreciate wire the most. It's basically the simplicity. You plug it in, it works, and that's it. No charging, no dongle to lose, no firmware updates that breaks things. Also high polling rate just works on wired much better. On wireless, pushing your mouse to 4K updates per second cuts battery life basically in half. Go to 8K and some people actually get frame drops because the CPU is busy processing mouse data instead of running the game. Of course 8K is still passable, so it doesn't really matter that much. So now we have to look at what to actually buy. Now if you want wired, OP1 8K V2. This is the only wire mouse I'd buy with my own money right now. The clicks with their GX speed mode are generally the fastest I've ever felt until the Super Strike X2 came out. And also that cost like double. So if you want that level of click speed at like $90, this is literally the only option available. Now some people will say what about Zowie? Some CS2 pros still use Zowie wired. But these are the same people playing like 400 DPI and swearing they can feel latency differences that doesn't exist in blind tests. And here's the thing about pro setups in general. Most of them haven't changed their mouse in like years. They're not optimizing, they're just doing what's comfortable for them. So I wanna really base my purchase on what they use. If you want like wireless and budget matters, just get clones. A $35 to $45 clone with a POT 3395 sensor and a Nordic class MCU performs at the flagship level. Now I've played Valorant, CS2, Apex with M2s and VXC for weeks, and to be honest I could not feel a difference from mice that cost like 3 to 4 times more. And if budget isn't a problem, just get like Super Strike X2, it's $180, it matches is wire latency in my test, and at this point they're just like the best thing that you can buy when it comes to performance. And one more thing most people get wrong, 8K polling rate. Most of the mice that I've tested never really have like stable 8K polling rate, and you don't even feel the difference between like 2K, 4K and even 8K. And since I've worked with a lot of these companies, I know that their main selling point is 8K polling rate, and it's nothing more than that, it's just like a marketing trick. So for most of you it doesn't really matter at all, so don't base your opinion on a number. So after all of this, here is where I'm at. Now the M3K was my favorite mouse I've ever used, and not for the reason you think. It wasn't the weight, it wasn't the carbon fiber, it wasn't even the cable, it was the shape. It's wide but short, and for fingertip grip that's rare. And I've been playing fingertip since I was 10. This is the first mouse that felt like I was made for how I actually hold it. Right now I'm on the Super Strike X2, it's my main. Because at the end of the day, the one advantage wired always had above everything else was performance. Faster clicks, lower latency and more stable polling rate. A wireless mouse now matches or beats the best wire on the market. But here is what I'm watching. If companies start adopting this kind of click technology, what Logitech did with electromagnetic induction, and if that ever shows up on a wired mouse first, with a really good shape and a decent weight, I'm going back. Because at the end of the day, the thing that matters most is performance and shape. Wired isn't dead, but the one thing that kept it alive just got matched. So we'll see, give it another year and we'll know for sure. Now drop your mouse and what you paid in the comments, I'll tell you if the components inside justify the price. And if you want to see what's the best option for your price in 2026, check out the next video.